Hi, I'm Nancy Mager, Director of Gateway's Jewish Education Programs for Gateway's Access to Jewish Education in Newton, Massachusetts. Gateways provides high-quality special education services, expertise, and support to enable students with diverse learning needs to succeed in Jewish educational settings and participate meaningfully in Jewish life. We've broken down tips and best practices into four main categories. One is physical and visual spaces, and that's how schools and congregations or buildings build and adapt and arrange their physical environment. Number two would be the social and emotional domain, how to create an emotionally safe space where all members are accepted, valued, and are able to take risks. There are best practices also around cultural supports. And this would be tips, tricks, and suggestions for encouraging an inclusive and welcoming community, including welcoming families with individuals with or without disabilities. The fourth area would be under learning, strategies to engage all learners regardless of ability or disability. Number five, other available resources might be consultants, the use of gateways or other resources, special family or student programming, and continued professional development. For today's webinar, we're going to focus on learning, specifically the use of visual supports in the classroom. Visual supports increase understanding of language and environmental expectations and provide structure and support. Visual supports are anything in the environment that remain so that someone can refer back to them. Here you see some visual supports for how to braid challah. And rather than someone just speaking instructions or showing you once, these are static. Someone can refer back to them over time or time and time again. We also have an example on the left of instructions of how to put on a talit. Again, someone doesn't have to remember the instructions, process the instructions. The information is static and remains, which supports all learners. If you think of directions going somewhere for the first time, how many of us would prefer a map over verbal instructions that go away as soon as they're spoken? According to the Illinois Autism Training and Technical Assistance Project, visual supports are tools that are used to increase the understanding of language, environmental expectations, and to provide structure and support. They facilitate understanding by remaining static or fixed in the individual's environment. If verbal language, which is considered transient or fleeting, is the only method used to communicate expectations, provide support, and increase an understanding of language. We use visual supports for a variety of reasons, but I always like to think of it as visual supports are what level the playing field for learners of different abilities. Spoken language can move very quickly. If you're not paying attention, if you daydream for a minute, leave the room, or have difficulty focusing or processing, learners might miss crucial information. Visual supports allow important information to remain accessible in the classroom, allowing learners to return to and review that information or instruction as often as needed. Visual supports help students to process, organize, remember, and respond to information, thereby allowing the individual to more easily participate in the communicative process. Schedules introduce students to what the group or individual plan is for the day. Whole classroom schedules, seen here under Rosh Chodesh, our schedule, or the Gateway's Wednesday schedule, give information for all learners about what is happening and when. Some schedules can include time, others can just be the order of the day. Individual schedules, seen here on the right, tell learners what's happening just for them. This is really helpful if you have kids going to electives or have special tutoring. Schedules reduce anxiety and promote independence, even with our youngest learners. They also provide structure. Like you might check your phone to see your calendar or schedule throughout the day. Kids also want this and crave this kind of structure, but they don't always know how to do it for themselves yet. Activity schedules help students transition and stay focused independently. They are multi-step visual supports that show the individual steps within a task. They help kids independently move through a lesson or transition from one task to the next. They also help kids stay focused. Here are two examples of activity schedules or mini schedules that help kids get through a multi-step activity. The first is an example of making beeswax candles, and the second is hand washing. Imagine a young child or a child who is easily distracted or one who has limited language or speaks a different language than the classroom teacher. Visual supports like these would help them complete the task independently. Most of us have clocks in our classroom, but most of us do not indicate when something is ending visually. That leads to a lot of antsy behavior in kids. Asking for drinks, trips to the bathroom. Kids want to know how much more until they're done, or what do I do next? Timers and clocks help kids understand when they're done with an activity. They can be used to motivate kids to get things done more quickly with beat the clock games, or just to stay on task, knowing that they have a break coming up. Clocks and timers also allow kids to be more independently productive. It helps increase their understanding of time and space. Here are some examples of some basic timers which can be useful. You can order them inexpensively online. Some vibrate, some make noise, depending on your classroom preference. The middle visual, where it says I will answer 6 questions, is not exactly a clock or timer, but works in the same way that it helps students count down to when they are all done. Having the goal of your lesson posted in a visually clear space in your classroom will help keep students and teachers on track, both with class expectations and staying on course with your scope and sequence of curriculum. One form of visual supports that are important in every classroom are having clearly posted classroom expectations. Rules and expectations should be clearly and consistently enforced, but having them posted in the classroom helps learners remember what to do, allows teachers to point them out as needed. They should always be listed in positive terms. So rather than saying, don't yell, raise your hand would be a more appropriate response. Classroom expectations can also come in the form of an individual goal chart for students that need individualized rules. The use of physical space is important in a classroom for all learners, but especially for learners with disabilities. Your physical space should be laid out in a way where it's obvious as to what is taking place in what part of the room. How you lay out your physical space can also provide information about the expectation of what happens in that classroom. On the left here, we have a student working at what's called a workstation. He has bins labeled as things to do and what's already been done, the finished work. That's a great way to get a student to get through their work throughout the day or during a period of the day with maximum independence. His space is laid out visually clear, where it has enough information for him to complete his work as independently as possible, and he knows what to do next. In the visual on the right, it's an image of a classroom that has some supports as to what is taking place in which sections. On the left-hand side of the room, there are larger group meeting spaces, like the circle tables and the rugs. On the right-hand side, there are more study carrels for more independent work, where a student might work one-on-one with a tutor, or maybe even independently. Within a classroom, if you were to take a closer look, there should be labels throughout the classroom for where materials belong. This helps students more independently return materials to where they are, helps teachers in having a faster cleanup, and allows, again, for a space to be dependent on what's happening there, not on the person that is running the classroom. Visual supports can extend to academics. Graphic organizers are a great visual support to help aid students more clearly express themselves. The graphic organizers used here allow students to jot their thoughts down in an organized way and ultimately will provide a more clearly thought out essay or piece of information to be shared. Graphic organizers can be used for written expression, creative writing, note-taking, or study guides. Font size and spacing can be really important as well. Hesitant readers sometimes see a small font size and immediately assume they can't read it or don't want to. So increasing font size, increasing spacing can simply up the likelihood that a student will take an academic risk. Visual supports can also improve a student's understanding of a concept or challenging vocabulary. Many students think in pictures, so adding a visual support to help them understand the meaning of something can move a concept into their long-term memory. The common expression, "a picture is worth 1,000 words," is actually quite meaningful to many of our students with disabilities. Even when teaching students Hebrew, visual supports can be incredibly helpful and can include the use of shapes and colors to aid in memory, like a visual mnemonic. Here are two more examples of instructions that are visual on how to complete a task. If you've ever completed a Lego kit, you know how dependent you and your child may be on those visual instructions as you scrutinize each piece very carefully in order to create the perfect completed project. In the classroom setting, they're equally as important. It helps students understand if they've done something correctly or if they need to go back and rethink something. Visual supports are one piece of making education inclusive for all learners. For additional support and tips, or specific questions about classroom situations, please contact us or see the links below. Every Jewish child deserves a Jewish education. Please be sure to visit Gateway's online resource center for resources and more information at www.jgateways.org. Thanks.